Okay, so we talked about some of the things that you like about Bitcoin and doing business with it, and we talked about silver kind of being a novelty.
Yeah, can I talk about the things I hate about Bitcoin?
Yeah. What do you hate about Bitcoin?
Nothing. No. Yeah, that's we were talking before this interview. You know, I said I wanted to talk about how transactions with Bitcoin are not where they need to be yet.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. Go have at it. Tell me your ideas, because you're a merchant. You've worked a lot with people paying for stuff at a physical location,
right, or
on an online store with Bitcoin, and you've experienced some ways that you think it could be made better. So, tell me about that.
Well, I think in general, before I get specific, I think in general, it's just using Bitcoin is not easy yet. It is not easy. It's at the point now where you really kind of need to understand what you're doing before you do it, because it's very unforgiving. It's so easy to just lose Bitcoins if you don't know what you're doing. Just looking at the general picture, it needs to get to the place where you don't really need to understand everything. There's a system in place, or there's multiple systems in place that just make it incredibly easy to pay in Bitcoin. And
I've heard a lot of people say this buzzword of we're going to make an app that makes it so your grandma can use Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, that's really what needs to happen, right? I mean, God, make her stop paying with a check at the grocery store. Come on, who still does that? I still see that. It's insulting. No, but I'd like to say now, Bitcoin's kind of at the point where credit cards were when they were just the manual. What are they? The little metal things that you would. Yeah.
Yeah, where you take literally an imprint of the credit
manual
card.
Imprinters. That's what they were called.
And
that's what I like to say Bitcoin's at right now. And I had actually talked about this on another podcast recently. I compared it to when I was in New York City in April. I spent a week there. I was going to Starbucks every morning to get some coffee, and I noticed people were in line to buy coffee, and they were just instantly paying with their phones. They were just holding up a QR code, and it was getting scanned. This incredibly packed Starbucks in Lower Manhattan. And the line is just moving faster than I've ever seen someplace that busy moving. It was crazy. And I'm like, what are they doing? How are they paying? I didn't know if it had a credit card link to it or whatever. But it turns out it's just a gift card. They have an account and they have an app. And it's apparently Starbucks it's the number one way they do business now with people. It's like their number one way that people pay at Starbucks is they just buy these gift cards. They have an account and they just scan the code and it's done. And I'm like, wow, this is where Bitcoin needs to get to. You're right. Because now even at PorkFest, when we would do a Bitcoin transaction, we had a point of sale system, a computerized system, and we had a second monitor facing the customers with some information. And it's just basically the blockchain page with the QR code people could scan. And right now it'd be like, oh, it's, when people pay in cash, it'd be really quick. I could use a cash register very fast and, here's your change. But it's like everything would slow down with the Bitcoin order. Now, granted, the internet there is pretty slow, but it's still clunky, the process, where they scan the code and then they put in the number and then they, whatever. Wait for a zero confirmation, for unconfirmed transaction.
You had one QR code that was your Bitcoin address for the festival, right? It wasn't like each item on the menu had a specific QR code, right?
We would just give them the total in dollars. I mean, the system we had wasn't really the best either, right? I think the only company that has a POS system that incorporates Bitcoin for restaurants is BitPay, but they just wouldn't really work for what we needed at the stand. I don't know, there needs to be a better way to do it. What we just had a POS that you could just accept cash. I could create gift cards, and actually that's what I advise people to do at PorkFest was, hey, if you want to pay in Bitcoin, buy a gift card up front, a certain amount or whatever, and then we just have a balance on your account.
That is exactly what I did, and I ate all week for a couple Bitcoins.
And it was fast, right? You weren't slowing down to make a transaction every time.
No,
you wanted
totally
a sandwich
fast.
Or whatever,
like a fast bat.
Breadless sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was great. So how did you figure out, if somebody wanted to pay you with Bitcoin and they had the Bitcoin on their phone and they hadn't purchased a gift card, how would you orchestrate that? How did you make sure that they actually paid? Because you're waiting for the transaction to confirm. What if they try to send it and then there's no cell phone signal and then they walk away and it kind of gets lost?
It kind of happened like that. Now, like I said, PorkFest is the worst place in the world for internet, I think. In the first world, anyways. But where they have it, it's like all these people want to pay in Bitcoin, and the internet signal is just awful because you're in the middle of nowhere, northern New Hampshire, up in the mountains. But we would just, once we saw the unconfirmed transaction, that was good enough. Because most of the people paying in Bitcoin, it's like I know them. I'm either on Facebook friends with them or whatever.
So if their transaction got lost, you could send them a Facebook message and say, "Hey, give me my money."
Yeah, and there were some people who had cell signal issues, and they would come back an hour later like, "Hey, it went through. Here it is," and I'm like, "Okay, that's cool, thanks." But yeah, I was just basically telling them the cash price, and then they would just put it in, the dollar amount, and it would convert it to Bitcoin in their app. But that's not really the solution either. I mean, ideally, I'd love it for just things to be tied to the Bitcoin rather than the dollar. I think that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other story. Like that's difficult to do right now.
Yeah, that's going to take a while. I haven't even really seen signs of that happening too much.
Right, and that's fine. That's not really the biggest concern. The biggest concern is figuring out a way where it's just easy. I mean, this is like, I think BitPay's system works better in a restaurant where it's not just like this line of people rushing to get in, to get their order in and then get the next order and get the next order. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different system for Bitcoin orders. It needs to be like where Starbucks is with their orders now. But it's not like they started a business with doing that. I mean, that took years to develop.
I can see that maybe Starbucks had a real necessity for that. They did have certain locations that were always just super packed. Right,
but they do that everywhere. And apparently this app even notifies you when you're near Starbucks. Like you can enable that on your phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's smart. But I'm just thinking, how easy would that be to do with Bitcoin? Like you could have your own personal account and you could just send Bitcoin to it to fund it. And then like when you go to Starbucks, it takes 0.02 or whatever for your cup of coffee, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like once companies, we want companies to take Bitcoin. It would be awesome if Starbucks we accept Bitcoin now. That would be incredible. But maybe they need to come up with a system or whatever. But the thing with Bitcoin, at least, is people can come up with systems. There's so many different people who work figuring out ways to do transactions with Bitcoin that somebody's going to come up with something that can be used across the board, or just make the process of buying something with Bitcoin easier, that other companies can incorporate into their own structure and have something that just works for them. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different options.
As you said that, I was just imagining going through, for instance, like a fast food drive-through. You could take a lot of the person work out of that. You know what I mean? Like you could automate a lot of it. Like picture driving up to a menu and each item has a little QR code or something like that you scan, and then you just send whatever amount of Bitcoin to that QR code with your phone, and then it shows up somewhere, bing, inside the restaurant, and somebody makes your food, and then you're done. You already ordered and paid for it in the same step.
Well, I think what would even be better, it would be a touchscreen where there's a lot of places, gas stations, like Sheetz is a big one, in Pennsylvania and Ohio, where you walk into this gas station and they have made to order food, and they have monitors, a bunch of monitors lined up on the outside. A lot of places have these, and you just put in your order. If a QR code popped up right there with your total, it's this many Bitcoins. You just scan your phone on it, beep, prints a receipt out, and you're done. People start making it then. Or even with the drive-through thing, even if there's a person there, you place your order and then the screen's there where the QR code comes up for your total. By the time you drive up to the window, kind of thing. There's a lot of different scenarios where that would work. There's so many different ways that you could do it, where that would all be great.
I just heard yesterday about some kind of technology where you have some app on your phone or something like that, and it's got Bitcoins on it, and it's basically any liquid that you would want to come out of a tap, like gasoline or even water or beer or whatever. And, you just kind of scan it and then fill up a cup, and then it charges you for that amount of liquid. So yeah, there's just endless applications for Bitcoin. And like you said, we're at the very beginning of that kind of technology and how it could be made more user-friendly and better, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at where Bitcoin was a year ago, it's incredible how much has grown. That's the thing. The growth's going to happen. I mean, I really don't see how it's not. And it really is only going to take one huge company to get on board for it to really explode. I mean, people are kind of just... Right now, what is it like? Most businesses that accept it are smaller scale, I guess, right? Is there really any huge corporation that's taking Bitcoin right now?
Well, I mean, don't forget George's famous baklava.
Oh, yeah.
It's a multinational corporation. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I got 4 orders yesterday.
But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there really isn't the mainstream kind of jumping on board with it yet, but I think there will be, right? eBay's talking about it now, There's
a lot of talk right now. I mean, it's still early. I know people like to say that. But it's true. It really is. And their growth needs to happen, but it's going to happen very fast. And it's been happening very fast. And, I mean, it's the internet. What do you expect, right?
From a technical standpoint, one of the things that I often think about is like Bitcoin escrows, for instance. On local Bitcoins, if you're buying or selling Bitcoins, the seller can put the Bitcoins into an escrow, right?
Right.
And then basically the Bitcoins go into this escrow address and then they get confirmed or whatever. And they're already in there, right? And then once the seller sends the release code, they get immediately dumped into the buyer's wallet and they're like instantly accessible. And they don't have to wait for that confirmation for whatever reason because it's already been confirmed in one place or whatever. So I could envision that kind of a system, kind of taking the waiting time for that first confirmation out of Bitcoin payments. You know, like if you had, for instance, almost like an escrow account where that's your Starbucks gift card and you put Bitcoins in there, like Starbucks kind of already has them, you know what I mean? And it's just like a few bit cents get dumped into their account like every time you buy a cup of coffee.
Yeah, just like it's basically like internal transactions.
Yeah, and maybe a lot of that would happen like off blockchain, right?
Right.
Because that would be the way to like do the speed a little bit faster. But, you know, speed is something that could really be super taken advantage of about Bitcoin. You know,
you can buy it on the Silk Road.
You can buy what on the Silk Road?
Speed.
Oh.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
You can do that. But I mean, potentially Bitcoin transactions could be really fast, really frictionless. That's what Bitcoin does best, right? Yeah. We just need to get it there.
It just needs to get better. and it's going to. I mean, I really believe it is. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a Bitcoin expert or whatever, but I don't know. I just look at where it's gone, and it's like I don't really see it stopping anytime soon. Mm-hmm. I'd be blown away if that happened. You like to hear when people talk about it. You know, they're like, well, you know, I'm not saying, you know, it's to invest everything into it, and you know, it's very volatile or whatever. And I get why they say that, you know, but at the same time, I don't know. I really think I see it as the future of currency. You know, at least right now, it sure seems like it. You know, get ready, buy now.
Get ready, here it comes.
Yeah, and if I'm wrong, you can sue me, and I'll pay you in Bitcoin. If it turns out to be a flop.
All right. He's promised it. Yeah. So, and you are putting your money where your mouth is on that. You are a person who's really in Bitcoin for the long term.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting paid in it. I'd love to be able to buy groceries with it. And there's still a lot of things where I don't want to just, we were talking about this off mic. It's like, I don't want to just be able to buy a gift card from someplace necessarily, or from a third party who's just buying those gift cards with cash, you know, after I give them Bitcoins and then shipping me gift cards. Like I want to be able to just use use Bitcoins to just pay a company directly. Like, here's your Bitcoins, you know, let me have whatever in exchange for the goods or service. Mm-hmm. Like I really want to see that with common things like grocery stores, gas stations, you know, things you spend money on every day. Starbucks, if you buy coffee, I usually make my own, but whatever. Just things like that. That's the next step, and I think it's going to get there sooner than later.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could go to the grocery store and, like, you know how sometimes you pay with a debit card and you can get cash back or whatever? Right. Wouldn't it be cool if you could get Bitcoin back or something like that?
Why not, right?
Yeah, like, or if you could actually buy Bitcoins at the grocery store, or you could change your Bitcoins into dollars or whatever. I mean, that would be cool.
Yeah. It's all possibilities. It's able to happen. It just needs to get there. Like there's no reason to think that couldn't happen. But yeah, you look at where credit card payments, see how far they've come, and it's pretty incredible how it started out. It's not going to take that long for Bitcoin to grow, I don't think, not by any means.
No, it's been exponentially accelerated by the internet and just the growth of technology. That's the pace that we're operating at these days, and it's just going to get more and more exciting. Before we end up the interview, tell me your predictions for next year. I mean, I know you're retired from the Porcupine Freedom Festival, but what do you think Bitcoin's going to look like next year?
PorcFest? Or in
no,
general?
Just like, we'll pick the arbitrary point of like next summer or next fall.
I think anybody who pretends to know really doesn't know, because it's such a huge picture thing. I mean, there's a lot of people in Bitcoin that are big players in it. I don't know, like how can you even predict it at this point? Just looking at how much it's grown, and just the growth around the world, because it's not just like this small market. There's just people everywhere getting interested in it because of a lot of it has to do with governments and their fiat and their currency taking a dump, and they feel there's more security in Bitcoin depending on where they live. So I don't know. I think this time next year, I hope to see. I'd like to see a couple of major players accepting Bitcoin like that. I think that would be a huge success if by this time next year there are big companies like eBay or PayPal or whatever taking Bitcoin. That would be incredible. And I really hope it happens, and I think it will. Well, it's only a matter of time. There's so many places out there. It's only a matter of time till one of them or a handful of them start accepting Bitcoin at this rate.
And what do you think about what the government decides to do with Bitcoin? Like what the U.S. government, how they decide to treat Bitcoin, is that going to matter to you?
No, it's not. I mean, it's really not. They can try everything they want, and I think the U.S. could get left behind in a lot of ways. With the government making it really hard for people to buy Bitcoins. I'm sure the U.S. I can't imagine the U.S. not cracking down in some way, trying to take control by limiting exchanges in some way, or who they deal with, the banks they deal with. I mean, we've already seen it, and I think that's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. But in other countries, it's not going to be that way. And a lot of places, they're a lot more Bitcoin friendly. Now, maybe they're not friendly in other ways, but I mean, realistically, I don't think that's going to stop the growth of Bitcoin. It might affect companies who decide to get involved. I mean, obviously it will.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what does happen with that. Is it just going to be like this kind of geo arbitrage where Bitcoin businesses and the real innovation is kind of positioning itself in places that are politically more friendly to Bitcoin?
It's going to be a roller coaster, and it's going to be fun to watch. It's been fun the past couple of years, and it's only getting more exciting. In my opinion, I love it.
Awesome. Well, Mandrik, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
Tell us where people can find George's famous baklava and where they can hear more from you.
You can't find it at PorkFest anymore.
You're retired.
Yeah.
That's right.
You can find mandrik.com, mandrik.com.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jason King, founder at Sean's Outpost, and you are listening to Let's Talk Bitcoin. Sean's Outpost is a homeless outreach in Pensacola, Florida, and we are proudly powered by Bitcoin. To date, over 13,000 meals have been fed to the homeless in our area, all purchased with Bitcoin and through the generosity of the cryptocurrency community. Read more about us at seansoutpost.com. Food, shelter, Bitcoin, everybody. Sean'sOutpost.com.